Did you know that a woman transformed Argentina and became eternal in the hearts of millions? Find out who Evita Perón was. Evita Perón was not just a woman, she was a symbol. Born in a small rural village and facing poverty and prejudice from an early age, she became one of the most iconic figures in Argentine history. Her journey from unknown actress to tireless advocate for the poor and women is a tale of courage, determination, and love for the people. Evita, with her unique strength, not only transformed lives, but also redefined the role of women in politics, leaving a legacy that continues to inspire generations. Eva Maria Duarte was born on May 7, 1919, in a small rural community called Los Toldos, in the province of Buenos Aires, Argentina. Her childhood was marked by poverty and social exclusion, a common reality at the time for many families in the interior of the country. Eva was the youngest of 5 children. Her mother, Juana Ibarguren, was a seamstress and maid, while her father, Juan Duarte, was a farmer who raised 2 families, one legitimate and one unofficial, of which Eva was a member. When Eva was only 1 year old, Juan Duarte abandoned Juana and her children. He returned to his official family and left Juana in a situation of extreme financial hardship. In the conservative Argentina of the early 20th century, being born out of wedlock was a reason for severe social discrimination. Eva and her siblings faced prejudice at school and in the community because of their status as illegitimate children. A notable episode occurred when, as a child, Eva and her mother tried to attend her father's funeral, but were humiliated and prevented from entering by Juan Duarte's official family. Los Toldos was a remote and rural place, where the majority of the population lived in precarious conditions. Juana supported her family by sewing clothes for the neighbors and working hard to ensure the survival of her children. Eva's childhood was characterized by deprivation. There were no luxuries. The family lived in a modest house without basic comforts. Even so, Juana encouraged her children to aspire to something more in life. Before we continue, if you love learning about the lives of the greatest figures in history, be sure to subscribe to Celebrities in Focus. Here you will find exciting stories, curiosities, and the secrets of the personalities who left their mark on the world. Like, share, and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. And tell us, which celebrity do you want to see here? We are ready to tell you more incredible stories. Despite the hardships, Juana played a fundamental role in Eva's development. She taught her children the importance of resilience and encouraged them to dream big, even in the face of social and economic obstacles. Juana's willpower inspired Eva, who from an early age demonstrated an ambitious personality and determination to escape poverty. From a young age, Eva felt out of place in rural life and dreamed of escaping the limitations of Los Toldos. Fascinated by fashion magazines and the glamour of movie actresses, she developed the desire to become famous. This dream would be the spark that would lead her to leave her hometown in search of a better future. This phase of her life had a profound impact on her personality and future choices. Discrimination, paternal abandonment, and economic hardship shaped her empathy for the marginalized and her determination to fight for social justice. This experience of exclusion would be a driving force in her trajectory as an advocate for the poor and underprivileged. In the 1930s, Argentina was experiencing rapid economic and social transformations, but inequality between urban and rural areas was glaring. The prosperity of the big cities, especially Buenos Aires, seemed a world away for those who, like Eva, lived in the countryside. The possibilities for social advancement for poor women were almost non-existent. However, at the age of 15, Eva began to nurture the dream of building a different life, far from the stigma and discrimination she suffered in her community. During her youth, Eva developed a deep admiration for film actresses and popular singers, figures who symbolized glamour, power, and female independence. Reading magazines and listening to local radio, she was fascinated by Hollywood stars and Argentine celebrities of the time, such as actress Libertad Lamarque. Eva believed that entertainment could be a gateway to realizing her dreams. In 1934, at just 15 years old, Eva made a bold decision: to leave for Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. According to historical accounts, her move was precipitated by a visit from Agustin Magaldi, a famous tango singer at the time, who may have encouraged Eva to try life in the big city. Although there is controversy about Magaldi's involvement, It is undeniable that this trip was a turning point in her life. Upon arriving in Buenos Aires, Eva faced enormous difficulties. As a young woman without connections, she faced social prejudice and financial precariousness. She began working in small roles in the theater and in low-profile artistic productions, earning little money and living in modest conditions. However, her determination to become someone important never wavered. Despite the challenges, Eva demonstrated an extraordinary capacity for adaptation and resilience. At a time when few women managed to achieve economic and social independence, she fought to establish herself in the cultural scene of Buenos Aires. Her tenacity was fueled by the certainty that she deserved more than life had offered her up until then. This conviction was a direct reflection of her difficult youth and her desire to break free from the social exclusion she had experienced. In Buenos Aires, Eva began to build her artistic career, initially in small theater shows and later on the radio. Although her initial roles were modest, her magnetic presence and sense of opportunity soon began to attract attention. For Eva, Buenos Aires was not just a city. It was a symbol of freedom, progress, and possibilities. Her departure from Los Toldos was more than a geographical change. It was a leap towards the future she imagined for herself. Eva's boldness in leaving her hometown and facing the adversities of the Argentine metropolis marked the beginning of her transformation from a young dreamer into a figure determined to make her mark on the world. This episode is a testament to her courage, vision, and determination to overcome the barriers imposed by her humble origins. At first, Eva accepted small jobs in local theater companies where she played minor roles. Her artistic talent was still being shaped, but she already demonstrated a remarkable stage presence and a great ability to connect with the public. At the same time, she was trying to make a name for herself in Argentine cinema, an industry that was still growing. Despite her modest appearances in a few films, she had difficulty competing with more established actresses. The first major milestone in her career was her entry into the world of radio, one of the main means of communication at the time. Eva began playing historical heroines and exciting characters in radio soap operas, which quickly gave her visibility. With a pleasant and captivating voice, Eva won over listeners and became one of the most recognized radio actresses in Buenos Aires. This helped her build a solid fan base and project her image as a talented and charismatic artist. During the 1940s, Eva consolidated her position as an important figure in Argentine radio. She participated in several popular productions and signed contracts with some of the largest broadcasters of the time. Her work in radio soap operas was often inspired by stories of struggle and overcoming, themes that reflected her own life and resonated with listeners from the working classes. At the same time, Eva sought to expand her presence in Argentine cinema. She participated in films such as La Cabalgata del Circo, 1945, where she acted alongside other local stars. Although her performance was praised, she never achieved the same success on the big screen as she had on the radio. Her success on the radio brought Eva not only notoriety, but also financial independence, something rare for women at the time. This period marked a turning point in her life. She not only began to support herself, but also to build a career based on her own strength and talent. The popularity she gained on the radio was essential for Eva to go from being an unknown young woman to a respected public figure. This opened doors to future opportunities and helped shape her public image. From the beginning of her artistic career, Eva understood the importance of appearance and public projection. She dedicated herself to maintaining an elegant and sophisticated image, investing in clothes and accessories that highlighted her personality. Her ability to connect with audiences and her mastery of communication would be fundamental tools in her later rise as a political figure. The artistic scene in Argentina in the 1940s was dominated by big names and cultural elites. For a young woman from a humble background, breaking through these barriers was a challenging task, but Eva managed to stand out with her determination and charisma. Eva did not see radio and cinema simply as a means of earning a living, but as platforms to reach audiences and tell stories that resonated emotionally. This strategic vision of her career would be fundamental when she became the voice of the descamisados in Argentine politics. These years in radio and cinema were crucial for Eva Duarte. They not only shaped her as an artist, but also as a communicator and public figure. This experience would give her the tools to play a central political role alongside Juan Domingo Perón, whom she would meet shortly thereafter. The meeting between Eva Duarte and Juan Domingo Perón was a pivotal moment not only in their lives, but also in the history of Argentina. This meeting marked the beginning of a partnership that would transcend the personal and profoundly impact Argentine politics and society. In early 1944, Argentina was facing a period of great social and political instability. The country, ruled by the military after a coup d'état in 1943, was undergoing structural changes. In January 1944, a devastating earthquake struck the city of San Juan in western Argentina, leaving thousands dead and homeless. In response, the government organized a charity event in Buenos Aires to raise funds for the victims. It was at this charity event that Eva Duarte, then a rising actress and radio host, met Juan Domingo Perón, who at the time was Vice President and Secretary of Labor and Social Security. Although there were many celebrities and politicians in attendance, Eva and Perón felt an immediate connection. He, a 48-year-old man, was already an influential figure in Argentine politics. She, at 24, was an ambitious young woman determined to stand out. After the event, Eva and Perón began to grow closer. Despite the difference in age and social background, they shared a mutual understanding of the power of communication and the importance of gaining popular support. Eva began to participate in public life alongside Perón, acting as his partner and advisor. He recognized her ability to connect emotionally with the people, something that complemented his political strategy. The relationship between Eva and Perón was not only romantic, it was also strategic. She saw in him an opportunity to enter the political world, while he realized that Eva had the charisma and intuition to attract the most humble sectors of society. Eva soon began to use her experience as a communicator to promote Perón's ideas. She helped translate his policies into simple, direct messages that resonated with the masses. The relationship between the two was not well received by everyone. Eva was viewed with suspicion by the political and social elite, who did not approve of her humble origins and her artistic career. Nevertheless, the couple ignored the criticism and grew stronger, joining forces to consolidate their position in the Argentine political scene. In 1945, Juan Perón was arrested by the military, who feared his growing popularity among workers. During this critical period, Eva played a key role, mobilizing unions and workers to demand Perón's release. The massive popular demonstration that culminated on October 17, 1945, known as Peronist Loyalty Day, resulted in Perón's release and marked the definitive rise of the Peronist movement. Shortly after Perón's release, on October 22, 1945, Eva and he were married in a discreet ceremony. The union formalized a partnership that was already evident in the public and political arena. With the marriage, Eva became not only his wife, but also his main political ally. Perón ran for president in 1946, with Eva by his side playing an active role in the campaign. During the campaign, Eva traveled the country, using her skills as a communicator to speak directly to workers and marginalized people, establishing an emotional connection with the people that would be crucial to Perón's victory. The meeting between Eva and Perón was much more than a love story. It was the beginning of an alliance that redefined Argentine politics. Eva became a fundamental pillar in the consolidation of Peronism, contributing not only to its popularity but also to its social vision. After her marriage to Juan Domingo Perón, Eva Duarte began to stand out not only as First Lady, but as a political and social figure of enormous influence. This new phase marked her transformation into Evita, a charismatic leader who broke down social barriers and mobilized the masses, especially workers and the poor. Juan Domingo Perón ran for president in 1946, representing the newly formed Peronist movement, which combined populist, nationalist and social justice policies. During the campaign, Eva played a key role. Although the traditional role of a First Lady was limited to ceremonial events, Eva subverted these expectations, traveling throughout the country to support Perón. Her skills as a communicator allowed her to connect with workers, women and peasants, garnering support for her husband's candidacy. When Perón won the election and assumed the presidency in June 1946, Eva Duarte did not limit herself to the traditional role of First Lady. Instead, she became an active political leader, playing a central role in social initiatives and popular mobilization. Eva used her experience in radio and theater to communicate directly with the people. Her speeches were passionate, empathetic, and effective, earning the respect and admiration of the most humble sectors of society. The descamisados, a term for workers and the poorest sectors of society, became the base of support for Evita and Peronism. Eva not only spoke for them, but also became their voice and representative in a society that was still very unequal. She organized meetings, marches, and events where she listened to the people's demands, consolidating her image as an accessible and genuine leader. Evita began working on social initiatives aimed at the less privileged classes, such as building hospitals and schools, distributing food and clothing to those in need, opening up educational opportunities for poor children. These actions made her a beloved figure among the marginalized, but they also drew criticism from sectors of the elite, who saw her work as populist. From 1946 onwards, Eva began to build her identity as Evita, an affectionate name by which the people referred to her. Evita came to be seen as a symbol of hope and change for millions of Argentines. Her public image was carefully shaped, reflecting strength, empathy, and sophistication. Always well-dressed and impeccable, Evita was a combination of glamour and social struggle. Evita's rise also generated polarization. While she was adored by the workers, sectors of the elite and the opposition despised her, considering her unsuitable for the role of First Lady due to her humble origins and her artistic career. These criticisms, however, did not diminish her impact. Evita used these hostilities as fuel to reinforce her connection with the people. In 1947, Evita made an official visit to Europe, known as the Gira del Arco Iris. She visited countries such as Spain, Italy, and France, promoting the image of Argentina and its government. The trip was a success in terms of popularity, but it also received criticism from conservative sectors in Argentina, who saw it as extravagant. Evita began to actively advocate for labor rights and social reforms, especially for urban and rural workers. Her actions included pressuring companies and employers to improve working conditions and raise wages. She also introduced the idea of social justice as a central pillar of Peronism, emphasizing the redistribution of resources to reduce inequalities. Evita played a unique role as a mediator between the Perón government and the workers. People often preferred to present their grievances directly to her, trusting that Evita would make their voices heard. This made her not only a political figure, but also an emotional and spiritual leader for marginalized Argentines. In Perón's early years as president, Evita cemented her role as an independent leader whose actions went beyond the traditional expectations for a first lady. Her impact was so profound that for many she was as important as Perón in running the government and maintaining popular support. Evita's political rise was marked by her ability to connect with the people in a genuine and direct way. Her work alongside Perón not only changed the role of the First Lady in Argentina, but also laid the foundation for her legacy as one of the most influential political figures in the country's history. The term descamisados emerged as a derogatory reference by the elite to the workers who rallied behind Perón in 1945. These were mostly workers, peasants, and internal migrants from rural areas who migrated to urban centers in search of opportunities. Evita transformed the term into a badge of pride. For her, the descamisados represented the true strength of the nation. Evita had a unique ability to empathize with the most vulnerable sectors. She frequently organized public hearings at her official residence, where thousands of workers could speak directly to her and ask for help. These hearings were long and intense, often lasting until the early hours of the morning. Evita listened attentively to people's stories, responding with concrete actions such as providing housing, jobs, or medical care. In 1948, Evita founded the Eva Perón Foundation, an organization that coordinated her social efforts. Funded by corporate contributions and donations, the foundation was one of the most ambitious charitable initiatives in Argentine history. Through the foundation, hospitals, schools, daycare centers, social housing, and health centers were built. The foundation also distributed food, clothing, and toys to those most in need. Evita was a staunch defender of workers' rights, working directly with unions and labor leaders. She promoted improvements in working conditions, wage increases, and regulations that protected employees' rights. She played a key role in mediating between workers and the Perón government, ensuring that union demands were heard and met. Evita did not limit herself to speeches or administrative actions. She personally participated in events, such as food distributions or visits to poor neighborhoods, which reinforced her image of closeness to the people. For the Descamisados, she was not only the wife of the president, but a spiritual and emotional leader. Many believed that Evita was one of them, someone who understood their pain and struggles. Evita redefined the role of women in Argentine politics. She not only worked on behalf of the workers, but also encouraged women to organize and actively participate in the Peronist movement. Her remarkable work made her a role model for many women, especially those living in situations of exclusion and poverty. While she was adored by the Descamisados, Evita faced strong opposition from the traditional Argentine elite. For many aristocrats, her humble origins and her connection with the workers were an affront to established values. Evita, in turn, countered the criticism with fiery speeches in which she denounced the elite's indifference to the needs of the people. Evita helped organize mass marches and rallies where the shirtless could demonstrate their support for Perón's government. These events were not only demonstrations of political strength, but also moments of celebration and unity. The most famous of these was Peronist Loyalty Day on October 17th, a date that symbolized the power and unity of workers around the Peronist movement. Evita's foundation and actions did not escape criticism. Many questioned the transparency of the foundation's funding and accused the government of using social initiatives as political propaganda tools. However, for the shirtless, these criticisms did not carry any weight compared to the concrete benefits they received. Evita's work in defense of the shirtless transformed Argentine society. She not only improved the quality of life for millions, but also raised the self-esteem and sense of dignity of marginalized groups. Her legacy as the mother of the poor lives on to this day, especially among those who identify with the social justice policies promoted by Peronism. During her time at Juan Domingo Perón's side, Evita played a central role in implementing significant social reforms. Her work focused on improving the living conditions of the most marginalized sectors, and her initiatives were fundamental in transforming Argentina into a more inclusive country. The Evita Perón Foundation became Evita's main tool for carrying out her social reforms. With resources from donations and corporate taxes, the foundation financed large-scale social projects. The foundation was responsible for the construction of hospitals, schools, orphanages, daycare centers, community centers, and affordable housing. These projects not only met the immediate needs of the population, but also sought to provide long-term opportunities. Evita believed that education was a fundamental right and a means of breaking the cycle of poverty. Under her leadership, dozens of primary and secondary schools were built, especially in rural areas where access to education was limited. Scholarship programs were also created for children and young people from poor families, enabling them to continue their studies. Students received uniforms, books, and other necessary materials. Public health was one of Evita's priorities. Her foundation built modern hospitals, equipped with state-of-the-art technology for the time, as well as health clinics in impoverished areas. She also oversaw the creation of mass vaccination programs and awareness campaigns on hygiene and health, which significantly reduced infant mortality and the impact of communicable diseases. One of the hallmarks of Evita's reforms was direct care for people in need. Thousands of families sought her help daily, receiving food, clothing, furniture, and even housing. During the holidays, the foundation organized the distribution of toys to poor children, especially at Christmas. These actions solidified her image as a mother of the poor. Evita also worked to create popular neighborhoods, providing decent housing for families living in precarious conditions. The houses were delivered fully furnished, allowing residents to start a new life with dignity. Along with Perón, Evita was a tireless defender of workers' rights. She supported laws that guaranteed paid vacations, working hours limits, and pensions. Evita saw labor rights as a way to restore dignity to the working class, which had historically been neglected by the Argentine elite. Evita understood that the inclusion of women in the political and social arena was essential for the country's progress. She led the creation of the Peronist Women's Party, encouraging women to actively participate in politics. Furthermore, she was one of the main voices in the fight for women's suffrage, which was achieved in 1947. This victory was a milestone in the history of Argentina and significantly expanded the role of women in society. Evita did not limit herself to planning or supervising projects. She often personally attended the inaugurations of hospitals, schools, and housing, reinforcing her connection with the people. Her constant presence made her seen not only as a public figure, but as someone who genuinely cared about the well-being of the population. The social reforms led by Evita were based on the ideals of justicialism, a doctrine that combined social justice, equality, and economic development. For Evita, social justice was not just a political slogan, but a personal mission. She believed that the state had an obligation to protect and support the most vulnerable. Although Evita's reforms were widely celebrated by the popular sectors, they also generated criticism, especially from the elite and the political opposition. Many accused the foundation of being a propaganda tool or questioned the transparency of its resources. Despite this, the concrete results of these reforms, improvements in health, education, and quality of life, were undeniable and cemented her position as one of the most beloved figures in Argentine history. Evita's social reforms had a lasting impact on Argentina. Many of the institutions she helped create continued to benefit the population even after her death. More than that, she inspired generations to believe that real change was possible when there was commitment and dedication. In the 1930s and 1940s, Argentine society was deeply patriarchal. Women had few rights, were confined to the domestic sphere, and had little or no voice in politics. Evita broke with these norms by assuming a prominent public position, showing that women could play important roles outside the home. One of Evita's greatest triumphs was her fight for women's suffrage, a right that Argentine women had not yet achieved. In 1947, Evita used her power to mobilize to pressure Congress to approve the law granting women the right to vote. During her speech in defense of women's suffrage, she stated, "Argentine women have won the right to vote today. This is a fundamental step on the path to women's political emancipation." With the approval of the law, Argentine women were able to vote for the first time in the 1951 elections, a historic milestone. In 1949, Evita founded the Peronist Women's Party, PPF, which became the largest political organization of women in Argentina at the time. The party's goal was to empower women to actively participate in politics and promoted issues such as equal rights, social justice, and greater female presence in public office. In a short time, the PPF reached more than 500,000 members and established branches throughout the country, reflecting Evita's leadership and charisma. Under Evita's leadership, the PPF helped elect 23 female deputies and 6 female senators in the 1951 elections, marking the first time that women held seats in the Argentine Congress. This represented a significant change in the country's political landscape, consolidating the presence of women as a transformative force. In addition to politics, Evita sought to promote women's economic and social independence. She argued that women should not only be wives or mothers, but also professionals and active citizens. Through her foundation, professional training courses were created for women, such as sewing, nursing, and administration, which helped prepare them for the job market. Her elegance, strength, and determination made her an example of how a woman could balance femininity and power. Despite her positive impact, Evita faced resistance and severe criticism from the elite and conservative sectors, who considered her unsuitable for the role she played. She, however, was not intimidated. In public speeches, Evita often criticized those who looked down on women and stated that their place in politics was legitimate and essential. Evita saw women as a fundamental pillar of the Peronist movement. Her ability to mobilize them secured the support of millions for Perón's government and strengthened Peronism as a mass movement. She argued that women were the guardians of social justice and were primarily responsible for fighting for the well-being of their families and communities. Although Evita did not identify as a feminist in the traditional sense, many of her actions aligned with feminist ideals, especially regarding equal rights and the valorization of women's roles in society. Her vision was pragmatic. She saw women's emancipation as an essential part of Peronism's project of social justice and progress. Even after her death, Evita's work continued to inspire women's and political movements in Argentina and other countries. To this day, Evita is remembered as a pioneer in the fight for women's rights in Argentina. Her courage, dedication, and vision transformed the role of women in her society, making her an icon of gender equality and social justice. In 1951, Evita reached the height of her popularity, both as a social leader and as a representative of the masses. In this context, a movement arose to make her the candidate for vice president of Argentina, alongside Juan Domingo Perón, who was running for re-election. This episode was a crucial moment in her political career. Evita's candidacy for vice president was widely supported by workers and unions, who saw her as the ideal leader to represent the interests of the people. At rallies and public events, crowds chanted, "Evita Vice Presidenta," reinforcing their unconditional support. Despite popular support, Evita faced opposition from political and military sectors, who saw her candidacy as a risk to political stability. Many members of the political elite considered it unacceptable for a woman of humble origins to occupy such a powerful position, and some military men feared that Evita would further focus the government's attention on the popular sectors. During a famous rally on August 22, 1951, known as the Cabildo Abierto del Justicialismo, a crowd gathered to ask Evita to accept the candidacy. Despite the pressure, she refused. In an emotional speech, Evita declared that she preferred to continue being just Evita and remain at the side of the shirtless, the people she loved so much. Her resignation was also influenced by her poor health. Evita was already suffering from the effects of cervical cancer, which was making her increasingly weak. Although she wanted to continue helping the people, she knew that her physical condition would make it difficult for her to carry out the responsibilities of such an important position. Resigning from the candidacy did not diminish her popularity. On the contrary, it reinforced Evita's image as an altruistic leader dedicated to the people, willing to sacrifice her personal ambitions for the collective good. From 1950 onwards, Evita began to face health problems that gradually worsened. The diagnosis of cervical cancer was a devastating blow, but she continued to work tirelessly until the disease incapacitated her. Evita began to feel severe pain and constant fatigue. Despite this, she ignored the symptoms in order to fulfill her responsibilities as a political and social leader. In 1951, during Perón's presidential campaign, she was already visibly weakened, but she still actively participated in events. After the diagnosis, Evita underwent surgery, but the cancer was already at an advanced stage. At the time, medical resources were limited and the chances of recovery were slim. Despite her suffering, Evita maintained her commitment to the people and continued working until the last months of her life. Even with intense pain and physical fragility, Evita demonstrated strength and courage. She became an example of resilience for Argentines, who saw her as a tireless leader. On July 26, 1952, Evita died in Buenos Aires at the age of 33. Her death plunged the country into deep mourning, and millions of people attended her funeral. Evita's death did not mean the end of her influence. On the contrary, she became a cultural, political, and spiritual icon, revered as a saint by the poorest and a historical figure in the fight for social justice. After her death, Evita received a state funeral. Thousands of people took to the streets to pay their last respects, many of them carrying portraits and flowers. Her body was embalmed and initially displayed at the CGT General Confederation of Labor, where it became a place of pilgrimage for the people. During the military coup that overthrew Perón in 1955, Evita's body was removed from its resting place and sent abroad to prevent it from becoming a symbol of resistance. After years of mystery, Evita's remains were returned to Argentina and finally buried in the Recoleta Cemetery in Buenos Aires, in a heavily guarded tomb. Evita became a central figure in Peronism and Argentine culture. Her image has been immortalized in songs, plays, films, and books, such as the famous musical Evita by Andrew Lloyd Webber, which was later adapted for the cinema with Madonna in the lead role. Evita remains a controversial and fascinating figure. For many, she represents the fight for equality, social justice, and female empowerment. For others, her connection to Peronism is viewed with criticism. However, her impact is undeniable. Evita is remembered as one of the greatest female leaders in history, inspiring women in politics and beyond. Her pioneering work paved the way for women's active participation in society. Her commitment to the poor and marginalized continues to be a reference for social and political movements seeking equity and inclusion. Evita's figure transcended her time and became part of Argentina's cultural and political heritage. She is celebrated in holidays, museums, and events that highlight her contribution to the country. Evita Perón left a legacy of courage, determination, and love for the people. Her life, although short, was extraordinarily remarkable and continues to inspire millions of people around the world. Evita Perón lives on in every fight for social justice, in every achievement of women, and in every voice raised for the marginalized. Her legacy is a call to action. May we follow her example, fighting for a more just and inclusive world. Just as she did, it is time for us to turn our words into actions and become agents of change. And you, how can you be an Evita in your community today? Leave your like, subscribe to the Celebrities in Focus channel, and activate the bell for more impactful stories like this one. Comment here. What does Evita Perón mean to you? Don't forget to share with those who need to know about this historical icon.